Well, hello everyone. I'm going to try once again to make this video. My daughter came in for something and I got totally distracted. So, the house. Our house sold. We are Arkansas bound. Our house sold. It actually, the underwriters, like I said, it was under in the underwriters, and we actually had more equity build up than we thought, and so we were able to give the buyers what they wanted. And the 30th they signed for the house, and on the 30th we get the keys for our new place in Arkansas. Now, your question is, how can you be at both places? Well, this state has, where Pennsylvania, you do not have to be present to sign. So that makes it possible for us to be able to do that down there. So, furniture wise, well, I had put out for people to come yesterday to between 12 and 4 if they wanted anything to come get it, bring your vehicles and load them up. But I think I messed it up when I said donations accepted, not necessary, because I guess people heard that and that was it. But not a soul showed up. So I got on my phone, and there is a place. It was weird, you know. I'm thankful, hopefully this one place will call me back. But with COVID, all these places like Salvation Army and all that stopped picking up furniture and donations. So it was actually weird. It had where fee-based and non-fee-based. Well, I'm like, okay, well, I'll do non-fee-based, you know. There's one organization that does it. So hopefully it'll work. Now you might ask, why am I making such a big deal about all that? Well, here it is. Number one, it's too cost to move it. Number two, we're downsizing. Number three is we have a car and a Jeep. That's it. Cannot move furniture in either one of them. So that is why. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't come either, because they're in the same boat. They don't have a truck or something to pick it up and take it away. So that didn't happen. So hopefully we can figure out how to get rid of everything. We just got to get there. Do we know why God's moving us to Arkansas? Well, no. What his plans are for us? No. But, you know, the Lord has used us in every church. Now, there's been a few churches that we've had to move on because it just wasn't for us. And my father-in-law told me when I first got married that when Sonda and I first got married, that no matter where you go, find a church right away, because if you don't, you won't go back. And how true that is. You get into that lackadaisical mode and you don't want to go back. So that is the first item on our list, is to find a church. And so there we go. There's one reason. And one item. And this last week has been a week. We had our vacation Bible school. The theme was Junkyard Redemption. Well, apparently a lot of kids liked that theme because we averaged 89 kids a night. So we ended up, we averaged 89 for the week. And I had 5th and 6th graders, and I never had below 15. So it was a good week. Tired. You could tell who taught and who was involved with VBS because we all were walking in like zombies. And I'll tell you, one major blessing is I didn't have a helpmate, a worker co-teacher is a better word to put. And only a couple weeks before this lady said she would do it. And I couldn't have asked for someone better. She just really helped me out a lot. And so it worked out good. So we're through that. And today was a little bit of a sad day because it was our last day at church. And we've been there since Winona's been 4 and she's 12. So we've been there for a little bit. And but it's just time to move on. The Lord has different plans for us. And so here we are, ready for another round. And yes, we get a hold of the moving company Wednesday. As soon as they can pack us up, we'll be out of here and on our way to Arkansas. As you see, my walls are getting more stuff is coming down. And this will be our last story here in this office. Next time we'll be probably at my son's house. So little steps here and there, right? Well, I guess the story today is, before I start, as I tell these stories, remember they're at least 20 years old. So I might get a detail wrong or get something in a time that happened in a later time down there, all those things. But main thing I want to tell you about is when I went home. Well, first we started out in that big ballroom in the Hyatt, as the emergency operations center was. Then we moved to a smaller room. Then once City Hall opened up, we moved up to the emergency operations center that was made for these reasons. Well, I went home one weekend and I came back and they had made on a computer a chart with all these little squares, one for electric, gas, telephone. Yes, we still had telephone lines as major communication. So that was Bell South that was down there. And hey, by the way, I last week said that Miss Lear had a blueberry. They were blackberries, not blueberries, the type thing you typed on. So there was that, and gas, electric, all those, sewer, water, all that had to, and school board, all that. And what came on first? It's kind of hit and miss, and everyone had little goals to meet, and that's how it worked. Oh, and termite and the garbage city workers. And now, remember all these little departments I talk about, because there is a lot of characters. And remember, all these have representatives that are there that are doing the main work. But remember, these people don't have homes. They're destroyed just like everyone else. They're living on cruise ships off the docks. Now, that sounds like, ooh, cruise ship. No, it's donated by a cruise line. It's not run like a cruise line. It's just the cabins are open for them to have a place to live till everything is back up and running. There's not all these meals and da-da-da-da-da, all that stuff going on. It's just a room. So, which I thought was appropriate considering it's a port and da-da, but anyhow. Well, they had this computer chart that had little squares, and it had little things for each department to meet, like for that day or for that week. And the square would be red. Green meant it was complete, yellow it was getting there, and red nothing. It didn't, we're still working on it. It stayed in red and yellow a long time before it got to green, but it was in red quite a long time, because you had to decide, well, what's more important, this or this, and anyhow. But I will admit, I worked with a lot of jokesters. This one guy, the termite guy, you might think termites, but yes, termites was a big issue down there, and they always had to spray and everything to keep all that stuff under control. I didn't know that, but anyhow, they did. They had a department for that. This gentleman, bless him, he must have been close to 70, if not. He was supposed to retire that fall after 30 some years in the city. Well, of course, that all went out the window when that happened with the hurricane in August, the end of August. Well, so we have that. This guy will be a very important person, because we have Miss Lear, who was the head of this meeting and seeing things get put back together. But the termite guy was her eyes and ears in finding out what's going on, and hey, this isn't gonna work here, or hey, this isn't gonna work here. And we had and that's the same way it was with a lot of these departments. The people they had there were either people that wanted to be there for their department, they were the head of that department, or someone that was there. Because remember, they're also dealing with losses. People just disappearing out of thin air, going to different states and everything as refugees, or not even surviving. So there was a lot, there were lots and lots and lots of things going on. Well, I remember this was the canals. Canals were older to begin with. People were, the engineers, the Corps of Engineers, the canals belonged to them. Yes, they somehow, or they build them and they belong to the city. But anyhow, they were in charge of repairing them. But here's the issue. There was a lot of complaining that the city had not put the money into these canals that they should have been. It would come, money would, okay, now everyone nowadays understands this, no questions asked. Back then it was a different story. How could you do such a thing? Money was appropriated by the feds up there at that level, and of course, as it comes down, more money is taken away. Well, that's what happened with these canals. A lot of the money and infrastructure, it just was not there. That's like today, we're seeing more and more of that. Infrastructure is old or needs replaced, and there's just no funds to do it. Well, So they had to rebuild the areas that were damaged and then rebuild the canals to be able to withstand like a Hurricane 5, because I think it hit landfall at 5. I'm not quite sure, okay, but that's where I think it was supposed to be. But under the funding for emergency disasters, FEMA, they were homelands, yes, blah, 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 blah. FEMA, they were only allowed to give money for the parts of the canals that gave way. So that was an issue that they were dealing with. So there's one thing that was going on. And then we had the argument over the canals. And I remember, I'm sitting there at the computer, running the computer and putting up slides and stuff. Well, I had this view where I could see like Mrs. Lear and half the group. I could see them. Well, the Corps of Engineer guy was trying to talk about the damage done to the canals and something about wanting to put dirt or something underneath the canal to bring it up to a certain level. And that termite guy, I'll never forget, he said that will never work. And I can tell you, I know what those canals are built out of. And he's like, I remember when they were building those things, those new canals, they took old junk cars and all those things and buried them in there. So to build those canals, I had to laugh. I thought, only someone that has been there that long would know something like that. And that is just one of the things that was going on. You could tell that it was a family, everyone wanting to come together to put it back together. Because one thing was, they did not want the older people to come back first because the hospitals and things were just starting to open back up and they did not have the capabilities for the health care. Well, guess who were the first ones to come back? You betcha. Those older people came back. And you know what? They did. They just went to work. We had, at one time in City Hall, we had an elderly lady that came up and was telling people, reading the maps and telling them who owned what, where the boundary line was drawn for the city, because the database wasn't there anymore. It got destroyed. But she was able to read maps and remembered where certain things were and helped the city remap things. It just amazed me that people would go through all that, it was just a blessing. There's so much more to tell you, but it'll just come with time. So if you like these stories, like and subscribe, and have a good week. And I'll talk to you probably from Missouri. All right. Before we get to Arkansas, we have to stop at Missouri. So, all right. Talk to you later. Bye.